Welcome to the D Shift podcast, where we provide inspiration, motivation, and education to help you transition from the challenges of divorce to discover the freedom and ability to live life on your own terms. Are you ready? Let's get this shift started. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the D Shift podcast. And if you have been following along on the YouTube channel, you will have seen and heard from my guest on this episode, but we are going to go into a much deeper dive into her area of expertise. So I would like to introduce you to Randy Rolfe. She is a fantastic person who has just had an amazing background. She's been an attorney, she's been a family counselor, and now her focus is really on providing education to people on nutrition and helping people be better parents and working on life skill strategies. She's a natural health advocate, and she is really focused on helping people take control of their eating and their health so they can live their best and most vibrant life. So, Randy, so happy to have you here today on this much needed topic.
Oh, thank you, Mardi. I'm very excited to be talking with you, and you're doing so much to help people through stressful times, and my expertise can help.
It certainly can. And so this is one thing that I have noticed, and I don't think I'm alone in this. The more stress people are under, the less they focus on taking care of themselves. And I see that one of the first things that kind of goes by the wayside is if you're feeling overwhelmed and stressed, sometimes it's just easier to stop at a fast food place and grab something to eat, or to skip meals because maybe you don't feel like you're hungry, or you don't feel like you have the time to do this meal prep. And that's probably one of the worst things you can do, right?
Yes, exactly. And you're so right. This is very, very common that we eat worse when we're under stress, when it really should be the opposite, but it's the last thing on your mind. And there may be emotional eating too, that you'll just grab something to give you a little pickup when you're depressed or worried or stressed in general, and then you aren't hungry for the next meal, and like you say, don't think you have time to prepare something good for you. So it's a self-reinforcing cycle that keeps you feeling stressed.
And when you reach for that food in between meals, it's never like some cut up vegetables. It's always like high carb, high sugar, high fat kind of foods, right? Randy, before we jump into the conversation, I would like you to just share a little bit about your background and what got you to this place where this is where your focus is with the clients you work with.
Sure. Yes. Well, I was very much an academic as a child, so I didn't watch my parents cook or anything. I didn't know anything about it, but I did have a grandfather who worked on a little organic garden up on a hill behind our house. And I also had a great uncle who was famous for his organic garden. He lived to 100. I was at his 100th birthday. And so I had these different aspects of there's something about health out there and food. And my grandfather had told me to always peel the apple. And I'm like, why? My dad is a doctor, and he didn't say to peel the apple. But he said, oh, you have no idea all the chemicals they're putting on apples today. And this was back in the early 50s. So I knew there was something going on there. But when I was in law school, I realized I had no idea how to eat or what to cook. And I saw people eating all these funny things in college. And my first job, everybody stopped to have a coffee or a candy bar or both every 2 hours. And I'm like, what is going on? Because growing up, I wasn't allowed to snack. That was crazy. And so when I was in law school, I decided, well, I better learn to cook and figure out what to eat. So I started reading, and I started talking to my law friends at lunch, and they started asking questions, and they were interested in what I was learning. And I just had more and more fun helping them with their stress when they're in a big trial or something. So eventually I quit law to start the Institute for Creative Solutions to help families, because once I had my own kids, they were so healthy and everybody said, well, why are they so calm and collected? And I said, well, I think it's the way we feed them. Uh, so so after that, I realized I'd love to teach it too. And so eventually I wrote my first book in 1985 about parenting, but there was a real focus on basic needs. Let's get the sleep, let's get the food, let's get the water. And so I was really excited by the response and kept teaching. Here I am, uh, 40 years later since my first book, and my new book is even more about simplicity and getting back to real food.
Yeah, and thank you for that. And I did not mention in the introduction that you are such an accomplished author. You've got how many? Five, six books?
Nine. This is the
Nine.
ninth.
Nine. Oh my goodness. I
Yeah.
should do my research a little better before I get on the podcast and go, oh, you got five books. I knew it was a bunch, though.
Oh no, that's fine. No, three of them are on parenting, and three of them are on nutrition, and a couple of them are just on other aspects of family life,
Yeah.
relationships, and loss of your mother is one of them, um, and there's actually a humor book
Oh,
about
good.
our cat, what our cat thought about traveling across the country.
I'm sure that one's got some interesting insights in it. Randy, let's so I want to talk about the single ingredient diet book, because I think that's really or not it the single ingredient, right? I did get that right.
Yes.
I want to make sure that we talk about that. But I'd like to maybe if we could, because like we were talking before we got on the podcast, people's levels of stress just overall in general, without going down any political rabbit holes or talking about the state of affairs in the world, people's stress level is just rising. It's just higher. People they're much more reactive and less responsive. Was talking to on a podcast the other day about how people now, when there is a conflict, people don't even know how to handle conflict anymore, because we don't talk to people like we did 20 years ago or even 10 years ago. So can you talk a little bit about some of the connections that you see between the myths around food and stress and nutrition and all these things, and how they sort of all come together in our overall health?
Oh, it's so true, Marty. And the stress level is high. We came out of COVID, which kind of rocked everybody's world. We weren't allowed to be close to people, and horrible things like not saying goodbye to an older relative in the hospital, things like that. And so it real disruption in our normal social relationships. And then, worrying about the not being able to get your eggs for breakfast, or the expenses, and just odd things that are just disrupting our expectations that we've had most of our lives. I've had them 77 years,
Yeah.
going on like that. And the response is often to disrupt your own schedule and feel overwhelmed and too busy to make a good lunch or even a good breakfast, and snacking through the day. And in the 80s and 90s, we actually did develop a popular myth that it was okay to just graze through life. But we're not grazers. We are humans, and we are supposed to digest meals. We bring the meals together for the young and the old, and then we nourish ourselves. But that's a whole nother story. But also we use food to deal with the stress, and this is causing major increases in emotional eating, which can become addictive because you tend to go for the highly processed foods that are everywhere, the donuts and the candy bars and sugar and everything. And also fried foods, you go out for some wings, but it's covered with refined foods and innumerable chemicals to make it just the way you expect it to be, no matter what fast food place you are. So we start using food to kind of get us over a little hump of worry or depression or stress. So it's a very self-reinforcing cycle that we get into, and it's ruining lives. There's no question about it, because all those emotional eating and the poor quality really start to burden all your organs.
Right. Yes. And I think, there's been a couple of interesting documentaries, and I'm always very cautious with recommending specific documentaries because usually a documentary has an agenda. Like, they're very rarely neutral in the way they're presenting information. But there's been a lot of great documentaries about the I'm going to say contamination. That's not the right word, but kind of the good foods, even healthy foods, even packaged vegetables that, now a lot of them come with a sauce, and the sauce is full of sugar and chemicals that are designed to excite your taste buds, but also give your brain a hit of dopamine, which is exactly the same if you were using drugs. And so your brain gets you get that's the craving, right? It's not necessarily the food, it's what's going on in your brain with the sugars and the additives. Am I on the right track with that? Or
Absolutely. It's you develop a dependency because your brain is looking to get that dopamine from the quick hit from the refined food. Definitely. And I talk about food pollution. Yeah, it is contaminated. And they add sugar to frozen peas, for instance, just so you get that extra little flavor from the food. So people are expecting that sweet flavor from everything, and yet in nature, the only things that are sweet without a whole lot of fiber are maple syrup, if you boil it 40 to 1,
right.
or milk, which we don't even think of as sweet, or honey. And there's hardly anything else in nature, a few herbs, maybe monk fruit and stevia, but they've never been a big part of any human diet. And it's dangerous to make them into a big in your diet because you're still feeding that sweet taste, I mean.
Right,
So
right.
you're expecting that sweet taste. And there was even a study by the American Dietetics Association that even if you're substituting artificial sweeteners for your sugar intake, you'll tend to eat just as many carbohydrates because when you eat sweets, you expect to find carbohydrates, and the body's looking for fiber too, but it won't find it.
Right.
So it's definitely affecting the brain. And unfortunately, my research shows that there's no question that the food processors know that. They know they are making you dependent on these refined carbohydrates.
Absolutely. And look at the amount of money. This is what I always think. Look at the amount of money that they spend on advertising snacks. And then they label them as healthy because they've got almonds or something in it. And the almonds are like, if you look at the ingredient list, they're way down at the bottom. But there's so many myths about what makes a food healthy. And I know that's one of kind of your areas of expertise. So can you talk maybe a little bit about those myths, that the things that maybe unconsciously we're responding to, that are put there specifically, or we've been indoctrinated that makes a food healthy or beneficial?
Yeah, there are a couple of big ones. First of all, there's a deliberate effort to convince us that we're overweight because we're not exercising enough. Now, there's very little evidence that we're exercising less than we did 50 years ago. And yet obesity has doubled just in the last generation, since the 90s. And it is the processed food, as we just described, that people are become dependent, and they're looking for those quick taste sensations, and they call it hyper palatable food in the industry. And but that is a myth that we're just, if we only exercise more, we wouldn't have the obesity problem. And then another one is that it's that fat makes us fat. And that it's completely wrong. That it's the sugar and the carbohydrates. But back in the 60s, the sugar industry was starting to be blamed for the increase in heart disease. So they took a page out of the tobacco industry and blamed something else. Like the tobacco industry blamed the gases in our basements until they got caught. And then uh, so they blamed fat. And we still are under this myth that it's fats that make us fat. And so we're told to eat lean meat and to not even eat the dark turkey, but rather the white turkey, and low fat cheese, low fat milk. But milk is so satisfying that if we just ate a little bit of that, we wouldn't want all the carbohydrates. So that's a huge myth. And the other myth that is disappearing because so many people are getting so sick so young is that the degenerative diseases are just for older people and we're just living so much longer. So I give all the data in my book to say, look, we are not living that much longer. In 100 years, we've only extended our lifespan by 10 years, and it's now going down again. And that last 10 years, super medicated and not very big to look forward to. A lot of people aren't looking forward to that anymore. They're worried about being demented and decrepit and hurting all over, like so many of our old people are now. So there's other myths too, but those are the main ones that I try to educate people about for my clients, because it is so insidious that you have to be careful of fat. And you see that all the time in movies and shows. Oh, you're having a cheesecake? Isn't there too much fat in there? Or you had 2 eggs every morning? You can't do that. And they just act like you're going to burst from cholesterol if you have some eggs. It's all to make us eat the processed foods because there's so much more profit in the processed food than in real food. I mean,
Right.
we've been eating real food for a million years, and people weren't dying of cancer and eating too much fat in most of the 20th century. People were slender
Yeah.
and they were eating their turkey and their cheese. And in Europe too, the Europeans eat a whole lot of cheese. And yet they're only starting to have problems with obesity since they're eating more of the processed foods.
Right. Right.
And they're trying to keep a lot of them out of Europe.
Exactly. I was going to say a lot of the ingredients that are in the processed foods here are not, they're banned in many countries in throughout Europe and around the world. Even differences with what can be brought into Canada, because Canada has different restrictions on, because I'm Canadian, so I happen to know that one. But yeah, and I think the reason that I think this is really important for moms to understand and for people going through divorce to understand is that making some changes in your food can help to, number one, help your body naturally be more healthy and heal, to help to reduce the stress levels, and more importantly, I think, to help our kids learn a healthier way to eat than maybe we were brought up. That Maya Angelou always says, do the best with what you can until you know better. And then when you know better, do better. That's not her exact quote, but it's along those lines. And I think now the research is clear now that doing better is eliminating as many processed and artificial foods as we can and just replacing them with whole meats, like natural meat, a cut of meat, vegetables and fruits, and healthy fats, avocado, olive oil, olives. What are your thoughts on that? And what are the reasons people don't do that?
Well, the reason I'll start there, the reason they don't do is because they're caught up in the processed foods and the cycle we just talked about. But it's so critical for kids. I mean, that's one of the main things that parents need to do is set the expectations for the environment, to have an environment that's just good food. Just don't even bring the junk into the house, and your toddler won't even know it exists until they get to preschool or something. So get them used to educating their body and their mind to look for real food that tastes real and is satisfying. I often tell people that if you take processed food, you'll eat it faster because there's no fiber, but also because it doesn't taste good at the end when you've chewed it. It loses its flavor. Real food does not lose its flavor. You can keep chewing it, uh, and it tastes great. So it'll slow down your eating and it'll slow down your digestion, so you won't crave more food in 2 hours. And so if you get your kids on that kind of schedule, I remember when my kids, when they would go overnight to a friend's house, I remember a mom said, well, we offered him a Coke and he didn't take it. And I said, yeah. And she said, well, you must have a real strict household that he'll turn down a Coke. And I said, no, he knows it's not good for him,
Right.
you know?
Yeah.
And he knows what food is good for him. And when I have families in my classroom, I'll say, ask the kids, do you want to be big and strong? And they say, yeah. And I said, well, good food will help you. And they're like, oh, really?
Yeah.
So the parents set the standard by what they bring into the house and also by explaining things. And I say, don't explain things at mealtime because everybody's hungry. But you can catch them watching a show or a stupid ad or something, and just say, "Oh, what do you think of that?" And they'll eventually tell you, like, "Oh yeah, I wouldn't want to eat that. It's all special colors and way too sweet." And
Right.
so they learn from you. So it's so important for you to take care of your diet, and it's often a problem I find if one parent likes all the fast food and the snacks. But but it only takes one parent to really get the truth across to you. I meet people that, oh, my grandmother used to say that, or oh, my aunt always gave me a lecture on that. Um, so, and I also warn parents that the children will experiment when they find the way everybody else is eating. They might take a couple of years, but I remember when my son was living with three other guys after high school, and he said, I realized they were always getting sick and I wasn't.
Yeah.
So what you taught me was okay, mom, So it's always a nice moment.
It's nice to be validated, isn't it? Yeah.
Yes.
So, Randy, I do want to, and these conversations go so quickly. I do want to circle back around to your book, your latest book, the single ingredient book. Can you talk a little bit about that, and and maybe share what brought you, what was the insight or the inspiration to writing that particular book?
Sure. Yes. Well, I've been teaching nutrition now for 50 years, and I was thinking, what's the one thing I could tell somebody to change their nutrition pattern, their diet habits? And what came to me was just eat foods that have one ingredient. Don't read long ingredient lists. Some ways, those brainwash us that all those chemicals are okay. They're not. They pile up and they gum up everything. So that the idea of just choosing foods that don't need a long ingredient label. They have one ingredient. So you can put them together any way you want, but start with single ingredients. Fillet of fish or breast of chicken or eggs or milk. I recommend goat milk or sheep milk, because our milk in this country is so changed by hormones and antibiotics and GMO. But uh, in the vegetarian world, there's beans and nuts and seeds and, like you said, avocado there, and olives. There's so much good food that doesn't need an ingredient. You look at it, you know what it is. You don't have
Right.
to look at it and make sure it has not enough salt and not too much salt and not too much sugar. And you don't have to do that analysis if you're eating an apple or a banana or a fish fillet, or a pile of beans and rice. It's just choose single ingredient foods. And the trick is to make the transition, because as we've talked about, it's so addicting to be snacking all the time and thinking you can just skip a meal and get something on the way home. um, so it's the transition is difficult, and that's why I have a course on that. But the book explains why, and I think it's so important, the education of because we do have our reasoning in our brain, and we can remind ourselves, oh, wait a minute, I do know what this is going to do to me if I eat this bag of chips or cookies.
Right, right. Yeah, so I've been trying since January 1st. I have completely cut out processed foods. And
Oh, neat.
I didn't eat a lot of them, but boy, have I noticed a difference. Like I mean, I'm not going to say it was some magic cure for me because I didn't have any major health issues before, but I just feel my energy levels are like through the roof, and I sleep better, and I don't snack between meals. So I have 3 meals a day and I don't snack. And I don't I don't feel I'm eating as much as I used to. That's the weird thing. Now, I will throw this out here, and we did talk about this on the podcast. It Some people have the perception that this is way too crazy expensive, because let's face it, the price of vegetables, meat, eggs, we know that it's all, it's going up and it all goes through cycles. But on the podcast, you gave some tips that people can, or on the podcast, on the YouTube recording, some tips that things like oatmeal can be a very healthy breakfast. And that's a single ingredient, right?
Right, right. Yes, at one time I had a bad cold when I was pregnant with my daughter, and I called my favorite health advisor, and he said, "Just eat oatmeal. You can live on oatmeal even though you're pregnant for a week if you can't eat anything else." And yeah, it's a really healthy food, and some people avoid it because it has more fat than some of the other grains, but you need that fat
Right,
uh, to store away, for your liver turns it into glucose when you need it.
right,
So yeah, when you stop snacking and don't buy the quick fix kinds of processed foods, people have no idea how much money is going into that.
yeah,
And then I also say, what if you didn't have to spend any money at the drugstore? I haven't bought anything in the drugstore in 40 years. And I don't take any medications at 77. So I don't waste time at doctor's offices with problems.
right,
So you get rid of so many other expenses. And some foods, like my husband showed the other day, that the wild caught salmon was cheaper than the farm salmon. And the farm salmon, they feed them something that turns them pink because they don't get their natural pink from their natural diet, and they're given antibiotics because they're kept too close together. So if the other thing is, we should use our vote with our dollar, that the more we demand organic food, the more farmers will create it, which
right.
will bring the prices down. But it's worth checking if it adds $10 a week to your bill to get organic, and you have so many other benefits that you just described. It's totally worth it. And you may, if you actually, I did this when I was first teaching organic food, to compare the side by side, it didn't cost any more.
Right. And I think I'm going to throw this out here. We're almost out of time, but I always want to put a plug in for this. If you're in an area where you have access to farmland, you may be able to easily find like a grow your own or a pick and pay place, and you can go and get your own vegetables, and they will talk to you about what methods they're using, if they're using organic or if they're using chemicals and herbicides and pesticides and chemical fertilizers. You can make your decision which way you want to go, but it's worthwhile checking out what local farmers in your area may have, because you may find it's a lot healthier, it's a lot better quality, and it's not sitting on the shelf for weeks and weeks like some of the stuff in the grocery stores are. So,
right, fresher is better too. Yes,
yeah,
absolutely.
Randy, thank you for all of this information. Of everything we've talked about today, what's the one thing you want people to remember?
Well, that their body is meant to be healthy. And if it's not, there's an awful lot that you can do to make it healthier. And one of the things is to give it real food. Our bodies are designed for real food. Everything else is a toxin and treated as a toxin and burdens the body. So believe in your body and learn to listen to it, but don't listen to the lies when it's being changed by the brain.
Exactly. Great message. Randy, if people want to find out more about you, what's the best way to get in touch?
Probably the best thing would be to go to my website, singleingredient.diet.com, because there you will get a 13-minute free video about it. And then if you want, you can have a free coaching call with me. And there's no obligation whatsoever, just time to help you focus on your wellness goals.
Great.
And of course, get my book.
Yes. I was going to say, and make sure you get the book. Randy, thank you so much for being here today. This is a really thought-provoking conversation. And again, people are going to have to pick and choose what they can do based on their finances and where they're located and all that. But I think even any little step you can take to improving your diet is going to have big impact on both your health and for the health of your kids. So thanks so much for this message.
Oh, thank you, Marty. It's been a pleasure.
And
I love what you're doing.
Oh, thank you. And I'd like to thank everybody for listening into this podcast. If you got any comments, send me a message or reach out and talk to Randy and get some more information on this. Just be as healthy as you possibly can. Don't forget to tune in again to next week's episode. Thanks for listening and supporting the D-Shift podcast. If you would like to attend live trainings by our amazing guests and have a chance to ask questions and get answers from our experts, join the D-Shift crew. For more details and to sign up, head on over to www.divorcecoachforwomen and click on the podcast page.